We're pleased to be joined by Levi Holmes, president of the Newark Bronze Shields, and also Zellie Imani, who is the lead organizer at Black Lives Matter. I want to thank both of you for joining us. Folks, we just finished a very compelling and honest conversation here in Newark called Building Trust, Race Police and the Community at the North Ward Center, and both of you were part of a 12-person panel discussion. Zellie, let me ask you, your biggest takeaway from that discussion wasn't unanimity, there wasn't agreement across the board, but people put it out there.
Right.
Your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway, I think, was a lot of disappointment. Disappointment that we had some of the largest officials in policing today who cannot really outwardly condemn some of the police violence that has occurred in our country.
So I want to put things in perspective. You will see my colleague Michael Hill from NJTV co-hosted, co-anchored this conversation. Now you will see the special that we put on the air, and you'll judge for yourself, but I want to put this in perspective. We actually talked about the Eric Garner case in Staten Island where he was literally choked out on the streets of Staten Island. He was selling loose cigarettes. He was saying multiple times, I cannot breathe, I can't breathe. He was choked out, and your interpretation was that some of the law enforcement professionals were saying it wasn't clear cut that what happened was unjustified. That's your interpretation. What was yours?
Well, I know for a fact that there are plenty of law enforcement professionals who disagree with the verdict of the jury, who feel as though Eric Garner was senselessly killed, and we feel that way as well in Newark Bronze Shields.
But to Zellie's point, and this is what is so interesting about this, that what I kept pressing, and Michael Hill, my colleague, kept pressing is, what can we agree on? Like, are there certain things we could look at and say, we agree that this is horrific, unjustified, and is murder? And then when some say, well, it's more complicated, you say?
Well, I understand the police officers' ambivalence in terms of describing what happened, but at the end of the day, it was wrong. As from a police perspective, you always analyze what happened in terms of the proper technique. Could the officer hear what Mr. Garner was saying? Like, there's always these different questions that come about. But in that situation, it was wrong, and there's no two ways about it.
You know, Zellie, you've also said, and you've been awfully outspoken, you have said, and by the way, the Bronze Shields are African-American law enforcement professionals.
Correct.
You have said that the idea of hiring African-American police officers or having black police officers doesn't necessarily make the situation between the police and the minority community any better. Am I misinterpreting your point of view?
No, you're not misinterpreting. How a lot of us feel is that greater representation doesn't necessarily equate to safety for those communities. For example, when we had a black president, you know, many of our cities, we have black or Latino mayors or black or Latino city council members. It doesn't necessarily always equate to more resources for those communities or more safety for those communities. What we do realize is that there are black police officers who are involved in a lot of these police-involved shootings. And regardless if it's an officer that's white or black, the system will still protect them the same.
But respectfully, Levi, tell folks who are watching right now the story you told the panel as to why you became a police officer growing up in the city in the first place.
Well, as a young man growing up, I felt as though I was always targeted by the police officers that patrolled the streets. I was a person who was not committing crimes. I wasn't doing anything unlawful. You just happened to be a large young man who happened to be African-American. You believe you were targeted. I definitely was. I was thrown in the back of police cars for looking at a police officer. They'll say, don't eyeball me, grab me, throw me in the back of the police car. I can tell you, as a student at Rutgers University, I'll be driving on the turnpike about 4 or 5 times. I was accused of driving a stolen car. Profiled? Profiled all day long. My car was totally legal, license plate's good, no broken windows, no broken locks, and I was pulled over repeatedly and accused of driving a stolen car. So why become a cop? Well, I met a police officer one day, an off-duty police officer who was working a part-time job, and we got to know each other. He told me I should become a police officer. Well, I let him know about my disagreement with the way police treated me in the past and how I had a disdain for police officers. He explained to me that I should become a police officer one day, and maybe I could have an impact on the police department. Do you believe you have? Oh, absolutely. You believe you're a better police officer and a more sensitive and aware
of the kinds of situations that could arise with those who happen to be African American young men or older men because of your experience?
Absolutely. I know full well there are countless times when I was confronted with violent situations and violent confrontations because I spent a large part of my career in robbery homicide dealing with the most violent offenders of the law. And there were plenty of times that we were one-on-one in violent situations and I did not shoot because I got to understand that even though these people had weapons and they were aggressive and upset, that they were not upset at me and they really did not want to harm me personally.
Zellie, talk to him.
Yeah, I definitely feel that those are situations where the police officer always makes like the right decision, but we're always talking about this particular system that has an enormous amount of power, right? And this power normally goes unchecked. So even though this one particular police officer, he uses his judgment wisely, we're still talking about a system that privileges certain people to have this power that basically is over someone else's life. And this is a system that we really want to start focusing on because even though there's hundreds of maybe officers who may make the wise decision, every day, at the end of the day in 2015, 991 people were shot and killed by police officers. And we need to really analyze the system because people are getting killed even if people are using their judgment wisely in some cases.
But can't we judge Levi and people like Levi who want to do the right thing, who do the right thing by themselves as individuals? If we group people together, is it harder to make progress?
I still think
because people do that with Black Lives Matter,
right.
and they're often very wrong. Try to characterize your movement a certain way, and they're often very wrong.
Right. Well, I think about systems and institutions and how the police institution has policies that really protect the police. We have union contract, AG guidelines that also always protect the police officers.
In spite of an individual who wants to do right.
In spite of an individual who wants to do right. And sometimes these systems, these cultures that's in the police institution kind of negates the things that maybe he wants to do. Maybe he wants to be a whistleblower. Other people want to be a whistleblower. Maybe some people do want to file complaints or tell their superior about this one particular individual.
Person.
Levi?
Well, what I say is, in my experiences, I've been a police officer for 23 years. I'm a sergeant in the police department right now. And what I say is that what you have to do is you have to have the right people to govern any people, be it a politician or a police officer. And as long as that governor has an understanding and a relationship with the people that he's governing or she's governing, then you can adequately, properly administer law and do whatever you have to do in that system.
Before I let you go, we have this discussion, building trust. 12 people, different perspectives. You were disappointed. I don't know if you were, but I'm going to ask you this. To what degree moving forward are you hopeful, optimistic that we can build trust in a more constructive way between police and the minority community?
I think that with these recent non-convictions of police officers, people are still starting to analyze the police departments, the court systems, and really not finding them as legitimate institutions for getting justice. And we need to really start to rethink what justice looks like for our communities. And sometimes that may not necessarily be police or courts of how we imagine them today.
Are you optimistic?
I'm optimistic about the future will hold for us.
I'm very optimistic. I'm optimistic. I'm very positive. I'm a part of the change. I'm a part of what's going on. I feel as though my organization and organizations like mine are doing wonderful things to bridge the gap and to have a positive relationship between the police and the community. And one thing to Zellie's point is that one thing that we do in our organizations is we push people to become involved in the judicial process. You must, when they call you for jury duty, you must answer. You must respond and participate so you can make a proper decision one day.
One of the reasons we can hopefully be optimistic is because of people like you, both of you, who are part of this conversation, and more importantly, a solution. Can't thank you enough. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
New Jersey Capitol Report is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of New Jersey Capitol Report has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, PSE&G, NJIT, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Johnson & Johnson, and by Verizon.